Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. But they have been away for quite some times. I was really feeling unwell and have been battling several challenges. But I thank God I surmounted them. Thanks to your prayers, we kept engaging with some of our dearest friends here. And I don't take it for granted for your concern. I'm now back and I hope we'll continue doing what we've been doing. Thanks a lot once again for your support. There is a general feeling that the delegates and several heads of states that are gathering in Nairobi, the capital city of Kenya, to be very precise at the KICC, being hosted by President William Samoei Ruto to discuss matters climate, is just a waste of time. A few days ago, William Ruto opened the Africa Climate Summit, and this is one of its kind because we've had several meetings, but this is the first happening in Africa, taking place in Kenya. William Ruto must be a very lucky fellow there. And he hosted several heads of states and delegates, and they are trying to look into ways to avert and to prevent the effects of climate change, especially in Africa. And I think this is in preparation to another bigger meeting, a bigger summit, one that will take place at the United Arab Emirates late in December, I think. So the African leaders converged together to speak with one voice, because it has been found that Africa bears the brand of the consequences. Africa suffers the most as a result of the climate change, while they really contribute very little to the climate change. So they suffer at the expense of those who are of the victims who are supposed to be helping avert the climate change. But people don't trust this meeting, because as this was happening, it really came as a shocker to the guest of honor, the United Nations Secretary General Gutierrez, because while they were busy officiating and enjoying their moment at the KICC, several human defenders and climate defenders, human rights groups, gathered outside the KICC to demonstrate against what is happening in Kenya. And if you look at the placards that they were wielding, some of them read that the international community must stop what they call neo-colonial scramble for fuel, oil and gas in Africa. And they were saying that the international community, who are the major polluters in the world, the global polluters, must now talk less and act. And there were several running battles between the demonstrators and the police, and the tear gas was being sprayed here and there. And by the way, these were not Kenyan demonstrators, but they were those who were demonstrating came from several countries in the world, because they feel there is hypocrisy in these talks. Manyora, who is one of our prominent leaders, not only in Kenya, but in Africa and the world at large, aired his view on what is happening about the climate summit. And he was saying that climate summit happening in Nairobi is another opportunity for nations and governments to come and engage in nothingness, empty talk and showmanship. These talks are a sheer waste of time and money, because those in power are paying lip service to matters climate. Look at Kenya, for example. We can't do simple things about environmental degradation, and here we are shouting about the big things we plan to do. Bure kabisa. Manyora is only airing, and I know there are several people who share his sentiments. He feels that we are talking big, yet we cannot even implement simple things that can help prevent our environment and of course the climate at large. No wonder, as we speak big and we cannot act, those who are demonstrating were saying talk less and act. Now another leader Grand Mullah himself, Ahmed Nasir, feels that William Ruto is strategically very wise because he knows very well that nothing will come out of this summit. All that he wants is to engage more leaders to hold meetings in Kenya so that we get more money. This is what he was saying, that yes, Kenya wants to attract as many visitors as possible. Imagine you have 10 million visitors a year with an average expenditure of this is $2,000 per visitor. You get $20 billion. So according to Ahmed Nasir, he feels that William Ruto and of course the Kenyan government understands that this is an opportunity to mint more money, because when you have such visitors, they will be spending in large hotels. They will leave a lot of revenue, because currently Kenya, if you look at the way our government is carrying itself, the administration does not have money. That's why there's a lot of taxation. So according to Ahmed Nasir, he's not touching on any tangible benefit. The only thing he sees is money that all the visitors are going to deposit here in Kenya. But let us engage on something that I think is very fundamental. Manyora is saying that we are unable to implement the very simple things that pertains to climate. For example, William Ruto had a very ambitious plan on how to reduce carbon emission and all this. And he was talking about the millions of trees that Kenya has really planted. But he did not touch on the fact that he lifted the ban on logging. And the environmentalists have been up in arm with William Ruto. In fact, this case is being challenged in court because some of unscrupulous businessmen took advantage of William Ruto's ban, and they are aimlessly cutting down trees. And you know that when trees are cut, when there's a lot of logging, our rivers will soon dry. This had happened some years back until Raila Amolo Odinga made a lot of noise, and there was a lot of forestation. Now we are engaging in deforestation, and we are sitting on a time bomb. So we must decide that we talk less and act, because there is some kind of hypocrisy. If we are cutting down on trees, and yet we are talking of millions that we are planting and that we are protecting our environment, then we are not very serious. But then, did you know that the major polluters, because we are basically concerned about carbon emission that is going to affect the ozone layer, scientists are saying that in the next few years, as ozone layer melts as a result of carbon emission and all the waste in the air, the ozone layer will melt, and as a result it leaves us almost naked. The scorching sun will soon affect humanity. And the major polluters are China. China is the number one polluting nation, emitting about 10 million tons of carbon dioxide, followed by the United States of America, 5.4 million. India, Russia, Japan follows in that sequence. One of the things why the demonstrators were really angry is that these major polluters must take responsibility for their actions, because Africa bears the brand. We are the victims of climate change. We have flooding every now and then in Egypt, where we look at the north of Africa, drought and all these things as a result of carbon emission and polluting our environment and the air and the climate from these major polluters. And this is what the demonstrators were saying, that this time we should really, as Africa, a continent that has got billions of course of people are suffering, we must really pressurize these major polluters to take action, to take responsibility of their actions, because this has not been happening. Africans will meet Europe and Asia and all these countries, and they fail to speak with one voice, because they are divided. No wonder they are trying to speak with them. So they are being forced that this time round they should hit the nail on the head. These major polluters have always promised in every climate summit every year. They promise that they will give money to enhance the protecting or averting environmental degradation and our climate. Like I remember there was a time they were pledging about, was it $1 million per year or something, yet they don't implement whatever they promise. So it is being, they are being encouraged, Africa is being encouraged that as they prepare to meet these all major polluters, they should ensure that they engage them in a manner that they will be able to honor their promises. Because Africa suffers, yet the major polluters do not want to honor the promise of giving money, because environmental challenges need a lot of money. I was listening to William Ruto saying that they need about 62 million shillings or 62 billion to avert to help clean and protect our environment and climate as a whole. They are also claiming that several African participants were left out in these talks. They are not part of the delegates, because the organizers feel that if they allow some of these environmental crusaders, they will speak the truth in front of people like the United Nations Secretary General, and they were blocked, because all that is contained in that, those who are going for this meeting are people who are going to massage the feelings of the European nations and Asia. That is why we have John Kerry was there and the UN Secretary General was there. No one is going to speak directly. No one is going to look at him directly and tell him what Africa needs. Of course, they're saying on a light note that we really need some money, and of course the United Nations Secretary General will say that I will look into it, but that is how it ends. And Africa, after this meeting, it will end just like that, because all these head of states are people who can easily be compromised. They will be given some little money, and that will be the end of it. And there are a lot of hypocrisy in it. People will say that they're planting trees, all this and that, but that is how it ends. And the environmentalists and the crusaders are saying that environmental degradation and the climatic degradation is not just a one-thing event, but it involves a societal system problem that must be looked at. Some of them that they say are championed by the presidents themselves. And of course, I've given you logging and deforestation as one part that should be looked at. And so, ladies and gentlemen, do you agree with Herman Manyora and of course Ahmed Nasir, who are saying that the only benefit we are going to get out of this meeting is the money that the visitors are going to left in our nation because we are the host? And of course Herman Manyora is saying that there is a lot of nothingness. Do you agree with them? Because you all know how there is a lot of fallacy in these meetings. There is no one who can hit the nail on the head and decide that from now we have a resolution that when we meet US, China and all these, this is our stand as Africa, because we are divided. Remember, as this was happening, there is a meeting happening that is supposed to try and achieve peace in Sudan. There are a lot of coup d'etat in some parts of Africa. And what does this tell you? That in as much as we even pretend to be battling climatic change, we have several challenges that we need to battle with. We cannot be fighting environment or trying to achieve environmental, degradation protection, yet in some countries people are dying and fighting and all that. We first need to get a united Africa, leaders who are elected genuinely. We must look at our election, because if we have an illegitimate president, they will not be so much concerned. All that they want is to protect their illegitimacy, and as such, they cannot face Europeans or the Western nations and tell them this is what we want, because they are already compromised. Do you think we are going to achieve anything? Share with me in the comment section, and thanks. That is my take.